That which you really love or hate doing now might end up being your saving grace and purpose in life. So pray for guidance on which is which. Oprah Winfrey says, where there is no struggle, there is no strength. Frederick Douglass expands on that, saying, if there is no struggle, there is no progress. So I decided to add another section to my channel where I'll go over specific events that's worth sharing in a given month, hence the birth of monthly reviews. This will be its first for the month of January, all in the name of living in peace to rest in peace. So today, I wanted to encourage someone, and especially myself, because I love talking to myself, and I realized that we need to encourage ourselves, and we ought to be encouraged once in a while to reaffirm that what we're doing is towards a particular goal. This information might not be for you right now, but it could be for someone that hasn't even heard of my channel before, years down the line. Don't quit. Keep moving. In everything, we are to give thanks to God Almighty when things are going well, and when things are very rough and tough, still give thanks. When your plans fall through or doesn't, still give thanks. Even when everything seems to be going haywire, still give thanks. It seems like it's hard and impossible, like it's a hard and impossible thing to do, and in that time is when the impossible will happen for you. Many people have found solutions to a lot of people's problems, not when they had everything, and definitely not when they had everything figured out. Not even when everything was rosy, but actually when they themselves were broke, rejected, and depressed, when they had hit rock bottom and maybe thinking of even ending their lives. This new year gave birth to a new me, like everyone usually says, because something happened in this first month of the year, and even though I want to shout it out from a rooftop, this will be the closest for me to do just that. My husband said something important to me after the struggles ended. You know, if things happened easily for people, you know, people wouldn't have any reason to give thanks and they will have no story to tell. But if there was a little bit of struggle, you would have a story for the people. So I want to encourage you today. Not everyone will climb that next rung of the ladder in their lives easily. Some will struggle. Some rungs will break. Some will need fixing. Some will need glue. Some might need new nails. Some might need a whole new ladder. And unfortunately, but fortunately, that's okay. Everyone's time is different. So different. I thank God ultimately that I have this opportunity to do this little video, and hopefully it will touch someone that needs it at the right time. A very dear friend of mine happens to be someone that doesn't like to, you know, toot his own horn, because he's very aware that others are still struggling, and he doesn't want others to, you know, to ever feel that he's tooting his horn at the expense of others. He's always telling me my time will come. He doesn't want others to feel like he's rubbing their noses, you know, in his achievements. You know, Laraddiji had to help him spread his good news. Here's what he said. He told me he graduated 4 years ago with his master's degree, and ever since he had been battling with his certification exam so that he could get a job and move on with his life. But unfortunately, he would take that exam more than a couple of times. This was happening the same time his family was also growing in number. In his last year of schooling, he was very distracted and couldn't focus on his studies, even though that year was just practicums only. He had focused more on other things than his schoolwork, and he paid for it in the end. He couldn't pass his final exam. The first time he failed them, the second time the same thing. The third time he had scheduled for the easier exam according to his classmates, and he failed it yet again. That was the worst, he said. He cried, he felt dumb and felt stupid. This was supposed to be the easier exam, he thought. He really knew the answers that time. He broke down, but he immediately picked himself up, even though it really hurt. That hurt, he said, took a year to get over. In the food court where we sat in the mall, I could see his eyes glistening. He said fear had started to creep in from the beginning of the test he had first failed. He had begun to get scared of the test. Every time he thought about it, he would take a deep breath within himself. He then equipped himself with some Bible verses anytime he had those thoughts of doubt and fear. Isaiah 41 verse 10, I will not fear, for you are with me. I will not be dismayed, for you are my God. He will strengthen me and help me. He will uphold me with his righteous right hand. Philippians 4:6-7 says, I will not be anxious about anything, but in every situation, by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, I will present my request to you, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard my heart and my mind in Christ Jesus. And the last one, 2 Timothy 1:7, for God has not given me a spirit of fear, but a spirit of love and of sound mind. He continued saying he gave himself a lot of pep talks and eventually picked up his books again and started from the beginning for what he believed would be his last time. He said he spaced out his studying and gave his brain a lot of time to digest what he was reading. He summoned all courage and scheduled for the test yet again, and his heart pounded. His heart sank. What if he fails it again? He said he just wanted to start the new year afresh, leaving all negative thoughts back in 2018. The day of the test was nearing and he got more and more nervous. How will he make ends meet for his family if he doesn't pass this test this time around? The negative thoughts reared their ugly and shapeless heads, and he kept telling himself to think positive thoughts. Johnson, think positive thoughts. And then he told himself it wouldn't be the end of the world if he failed it again. And that sort of gave him the confidence for some reason. Just relax, knowing that the world would not come crashing down because he failed an exam, and remembering that God wouldn't leave his own. So there are some things that Johnson knew from the beginning, in passing this test. And these are some of them. They said, get a good night's sleep before your test day. But he said he was so nervous, he was up all night trying to distract himself from the day ahead that he started writing his thoughts down. The second thing, they said eat a good breakfast before your test day. But he was so sick to his stomach like crazy from what he had eaten the night before. He was so uncomfortable. And I guess he was so hungry afterwards that he said he was smelling different types of food in the exam hall the next day. They said don't study 1 to 2 days before the test day to rest your brain. But he said he was so nervous about forgetting some things before the exam day that he was still memorizing some things the night before. He needed to refresh his memory again and again and again. They said take a break midway through your exam so you can relax your brain a bit and not get too overwhelmed in one sitting. He told me he went through the test in one sitting, 4 hours straight. He even slept, woke up, and was daydreaming even in the exam hall, and had only a minute to spare at the end of it all because he hadn't allowed the rule of getting a good night's sleep, of getting a good night's rest. So he panicked a bit multiple times, during the test because his time was running out, and eventually he clicked submit to finish the exam. Now you're gonna ask, what happened? Did he pass? Well, when he clicked finish, he saw pass. He said he had to look again. He thought it was a mistake. It had to be an error. Or maybe he was in one of his daydreams. He wiped his face again and again and pinched himself. Pass was still on the screen. He reminded himself he wouldn't cry and composed himself like the gentleman he was and is, kept his calm till he got out of his seat, out the door to his car, and drove straight home. He couldn't keep the excitement to a later date that he was thinking of, so he told his immediate family when he got home. 2 to 3 days later, he still couldn't believe he had passed his exam. Just like that, his life that was on pause for a while could now continue. He told me with tears in his eyes now as he finished his story. Backtracking to a movie I saw recently, Night School. I felt like my friend Johnson was Kevin in the movie. When I saw the end, I said, oh shoot, that's Johnson going back to take his exam over and over and over again. Not that Johnson had a learning disorder, but that feeling one gets when one has to restart and jumpstart your brain after failing an exam. But at the end of the day, Kevin and Johnson passed eventually. Hopefully Johnson will let us in once in a while on how he's doing at work, which is his next hurdle, getting over the first year of work, which he says is no joke. But guess who's confident now more than ever? Guess who feels they can conquer anything they put their minds to? Guess who's ready for the next rung of the ladder? Will that be you? A little reflection after today's episode. Who would have ever thought I'll be writing for fun today? I remember when I was in school, I hated writing. Oh, I hated writing papers like crazy. But I later realized that as soon as I would get my creative juices flowing on a topic, I'd find it hard to stop and end up writing less than I would have, really wanted if only I had started earlier. I procrastinate, you see, and ever since I started this channel, I've been more productive, especially with giving myself deadlines, planning my time and executing them. I struggle at times because, in the end, I'm still a daughter, I'm still a wife, an aunt, an in-law, and most importantly, I'm human. So I'll continue trying to be the best of myself that I can be. That which you really love or hate doing now might end up being your saving grace and purpose in life. So pray for guidance on which is which. I hope I've encouraged and inspired you today to keep going on no matter what and keep it moving. Don't ever give up on your dreams. At one time, even Johnson thought maybe God was giving him a sign to give up entirely, but I'm so glad he didn't. I'm sure he is too. Thank you very much for staying with me up until this time. If you're watching for the first time, you're most especially welcome to this drove. So that's all for now, you guys. Let's stop giving ourselves high blood pressure for no reason. God willing, we are on this earth for an average of 70 to 80 years. Let's not waste any of that precious time thinking on what we could have, should have, would have done some time ago, and just do it already. You have a decision to make about that exam you've been thinking about. You have a decision to take on that program you want to enroll in. That job you've been considering. The confidence ball is in your court. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe if you've been inspired in any way so you don't miss my new uploads. What are you waiting for? It's free. Do check out my other videos, and I'm hoping to read comments from you guys very soon. Don't forget to love your neighbors as yourself, like I always say. To rest in peace, we all need to be living in peace. Stay blessed. You see me in my next one. Bye-bye.